Hello, Roboticon community. It's good to be with you again. I'm Scott Ertz, the technical director for Roboticon, and we've got another great event for you this evening. We're going to be talking about the Game Design Challenge, and we've got a lot of our team here. We've got Terry Willingham, who I think we can all agree is the reason why Roboticon happens. And then we've got Bryan Bautista, who is the reason why our game design challenge happened. And it seems like the right team to have together. We've got a student from one of our teams who we'll bring in a moment.
Yep, Dahlia.
This is something that is a fun part of the season this year, especially considering that it was part of our season this year.
Yeah, this has been great. We've been enjoying doing these live sessions. We're really glad Bryan can join us tonight. He had done the ROBOTICON CAD challenge, which was designed around the game design challenge, and I think it was a cool thing for FIRST to add into the competitions this year for the remote experience. And I know our students embrace it, and we'll hear from Dahlia in a little bit about how Team Duct Tape took Team Duct Tape. We coached two teams, and Dahlia's on both teams because we were just joking. She's an overachiever, and she's like, "Oh, you have other things? I want to do them all." So, Dahlia is also on Team 5276, the Edgar Allan Ohms, and as a new team member, and jumped right into the game design sub team and a couple other things on the team, and they've been having a lot of fun with it. I'm gonna let Bryan take this one most of the time because he's got plenty of experience and been working with Team 1902, right?
Yep, I'm currently working with Team 1902. Back when I first started, this is now my decade actually. I'm just starting my 10th season.
Nice.
I started off on 1523 Mega Awesome Robotic Systems out of where I'm currently residing in Jupiter, Florida, and then I swapped over to Team 179 Children of the Swamp for my last 2 years in FIRST, and I've hopped around to multiple teams ever since, going through lending a hand in computer-aided design in most cases. So it was only fitting that I naturally took the helm for the game design challenge as well. This challenge was something that was an amazing idea that FIRST could have done. Like, it is the easiest way to get ideas from the people who are actually participating inside of your organization. Like, we know what we would want from a game.
Yeah.
And why not take the suggestion of the people who are actually participating in your organization? Because I feel as if when you're sitting on your at your seat at the game design as the game design committee, you're sitting there and you're saying, okay, what game can we make that's interesting? And you get into this hive mentality where everybody's just bouncing off ideas off of each other. And while there hasn't been too many disappointing games in FIRST history, I can think of two off the top of my head out of the how many games have we done now? Close to, we're at 28.
Something like that.
I think we are. Two of them come out to mind as being like the most wonkiest of the games, but
I've got a red light and sirens over one game in particular.
If I'm not mistaken, you participated in this game? No.
I've got more years on you than you do. So.
Well, I mean, I participated in 2015. That was my senior year. That's the one that I personally have the grievance with. 2009 is the other game that I was thinking of, and
15 was Recycle Rush.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the red light and sirens.
Oh. Yeah, no, Recycle Rush.
That one was clearly going to be a disaster from afar. I had nothing to do with it. My only interaction, other than robotic,
I still have totes.
Fair enough. Other than the Roboticon, my only other interaction was looking down on it at the Orlando Regional, and I truly felt like looking down on it was appropriate because it didn't deserve anything more than that.
So now, while that game was not a great game, this is actually a great example of something that First was able to achieve by using this game and by creating this game. While it wasn't a very exciting game for us, as the audience, the players, anybody didn't. There were not very many people that enjoyed playing the game. It did achieve something. It achieved being causing and still inspiring students to be able to create a machine that was able to tackle this game. And if you were to put these robots in a row at, let's say, like a science fair for companies in the waste management area in the field, they would have been able to go through and look across every single one of these robots and say, hey, I like this from this design, I like this from this design. Not necessarily in practice was it a great game, but as a visual aspect of learning what to do and not to do for this game, that game was able to really set that line. So, and I was the senior year, and that was my senior year, I'm trying to say. And 179 decided to go through and create the articulating hand that moved all the way around to go through and grab the game. So it still created a way of inspiring students. So while it was a terrible game in its own ways, it still instilled that inspiration. And I think that is the perfect lead into the most important.
And I was going to say, one of the other things that it did was that it showed us some of the things not to do in a game if you want engagement from the students, because the interviews we did the year after, or even at Roboticon that year, the general consensus was, oh. And so, leading into the game design challenge, that season was a great example of what the First community likes. The team-on-team competition, which there was none of. You were basically running two unrelated games at the same time on half the field. We learned a lot about what makes a game engaging.
And this also gives opportunity for all the students who have every year say, I could design a better game than that. That's like, all right, let's see.
Bring it. Let's
and
see what you got.
That's exactly what this is about. And so maybe we can take a look, and I'm happy to pop out here and give Bryan the floor and then maybe pull in Dahlia. But I'm really interested in hearing, your take on it as a mentor, helping the teams with this challenge. And maybe a good place to start is with the game manual. On what do they have to do, right? What's required? And I know that we're having this conversation 4 days before the thing's due. And so presumably any teams who are taking it on have already kicked around some ideas and are have something in mind, or they're putting together their essays and their stuff on it. So if they do have an idea and they're still on the fence about whether can we submit it? Is it worth submitting? Maybe this is a good opportunity to give them some pointers on that and help them through the rest of the process before what is it, March 4th at 3 p.m. The 3 p.m. deadline is, but that's they're in school.
Exactly. I find that so interesting.
Yeah.
Well, they're in school as per current situations that we're.
But a lot of them are still in school and they don't have a choice on it, and they have to be there up until school says you're not. So that's proven a challenge for some of our students, and that was difficult. Sadly, our chairman's got missed by 3 minutes. So he was trying to finish up school stuff and get it done and all that, and to submit it, and he missed it by 3 minutes. So it'll be a nice article on the team's website. But 3 o'clock is a
really weird time
deadline. Yeah,
especially if you're not on the East Coast.
Yep.
It gets worse the further west you go in the country.
If you're that way,
we need your end by noon.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's exactly what they decided to say. It was like, let's make it that the Pacific Coast, they have to have it in by noon. And it's just weird.
It's like when Netflix drops shows at 3 a.m. and you're like, What? Oh, right. They're West Coast. It's midnight. Got it.
All right.
Well-
Well, take it away, Bryan, and then tell us a little bit more about what the game is asking or what the challenge is asking and how
Yeah.
students can best meet it.
Oh, for sure. So, going through and looking at this game asks for quite a daunting challenge at first. They're asking you to create a game. But when you go through and you read the manual more specifically, one of the most important and imperative things is that they do mention that they're looking to take an aspect of whatever game you're creating. So at first you'd want to go through and think like, oh, this is an open invitation to go through and throw as much garbage onto this field and just see if an idea sticks. Honestly, from my experience, going through and throwing ideas at the wall and finding something that sticks, it's great in theory and practice, but in actual execution, it's not an amazing way of getting things cohesive and coherent. While they're asking for one thing that, as a mentor, when I go back and I look at this manual, the first thing that I saw was that they're not asking for a game here at first, because they're asking for several things, and they're asking you to write a 500-word game overview, 300-word element description, a 300-word description of what robot's going to do, and a 300-word aspect of specific things about the field. They're not really asking for anything in depth. However, they're asking for a storyline. So the natural way to go through and tackle this game, this portion isn't so much helpful for what's happening now because we're all pretty much done, but this should be helpful going forward when tackling things like this if the game design challenge at home decides to stick along with first. Tackling this game as a story, choosing an idea, and then wrapping your field around that is the way to do this game. And a much easier aspect. It helps you go through and come up with separate ideas that can all correlate together. And honestly, the game design challenge activities handout that they sent out with this, if none of you have seen it, if there are any of you that haven't seen this document, it is quite an amazing document. They go through every single step. Just to read off a couple of things really quick, they turn making a game into like an activity session. So they have like think like a game designer, speak like a game designer. They have a section that's just specifically on what makes a game good. They have the first game designs insights, and then the hat trick word, the power of storytelling, which is the important aspect. Developing a game using specific idea, converging, engineering design process, thinking strategically, and external feedback. It was a great way to step through and walk through. To go through and bring it to something that will be a little bit more helpful in the current times. I would hope that most of us who are doing the game design challenge now have our game designs done. We have an idea of what we want our main one picture. That's what it is, that we want to go through and submit for the judges to go and look at. And we should be tackling those small excerpts. The important part is how much information do you tell? Because that's the important part for your interview. You don't want to put down too much information on this thing that you don't have enough space for getting questions asked for you from the judges in your interview. Me, I've just applied to be a judge, and I'm more than likely going to be a judge for the game design challenge. So I already have questions that I know that I would like to ask of teams already in my mind. If you put too much information on these game overviews and inside of your elements and all of your other specific excerpts, there are things that it makes it a little bit more difficult for you to get your questions asked and figure out about your game. If you put on too little information, your game will get glossed over. So you need to find that middle range of like just enough information that it gets the questions rolling in the judges' minds, but not too much that it's like they've answered all my questions I would have. Now I actually have to find out of the box questions that they're not going to expect. But with that, that's the
excellent.
main thing.
I had to pop in. That's really, really good advice, because it's really hard to know how much information to put in your description. And, I think that, you don't think about that too often, but there's basically almost like a teaser to get them to ask some questions about different elements of your game, right?
Yeah.
So that they can get excited about it.
Try and drive engagement and questions, because if somebody's asking questions, they're more likely to remember the conversation and the thing that they read and discussed.
Exactly. And that's one aspect that I've learned from being part of a Hall of Fame team now, is that your preparation for your interview is actually the most crucial part of this kind of judging process. Because if you're not memorable at your interview, you're not going to move on to that next stage. And that's just how the cookie crumbles at that point.
Did you want to add any more, or did you want to bring Dahlia in a little bit? Now you can't judge them now, because now that we know
No.
them by.
I'm not judging. I'm not asking specific questions. Submission date isn't here yet. I'm full on just an observer.
Just push them by if they come by on your desk.
Exactly.
But I don't know if you want to pull Dahlia in here and maybe get some hear from them on their approach to it. And how some of that feeds in. You want to pull her up there? There we go. Hi, Dahlia.
Hi.
So Dahlia is a student, like I said, on team 5276 Edgar Allan Ohms. It's based here at MROC Fab Lab. And the game design, I think, is one of the first things that everybody gravitated to even before they really looked at a whole bunch of other. That looks like fun, do you want to tell a little bit about the team's approach to it? I know you all broke up into sub teams, right, for each of the different challenges?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Actually, we are looking before I think we all wanted to do the game design based like what you were saying earlier because of the previous game designs. And what we wanted it to do was, actually, we kind of wanted it to be more like a sport. So if the audience was there, rather than be clueless of what's going on, you can kind of tell right away which team is winning and what team isn't winning. It should be obvious just from looking at it.
Thank goodness.
So that was our priority when coming up with the game design. And then we focused on the story and what it would help with in the different products. But when coming up with ideas, we focused on making it engaging to the audience as well and clear of what's going on, as well as still having multiple tasks for each robot to complete. Do you want me to explain it a little bit?
Actually, I'm just going to interject really quick. That is probably the biggest thing that as a game design challenge participant that you needed to focus on. Because if you look at every single game that First has put out, how many games could you look at if you were just thrown into the audience? Could you say, I know who's winning at this point?
I can weigh in on that. So here is my interaction with the games in general. I watch the video, usually in the airport coming back from CES, and then I don't hear anything else until I am sitting up in the studio at the Orlando Regional doing our show. And I've got nothing connecting them. Occasionally I'll help Edgar Allan Ohms or, get a call from another team for some coding assistance, but I still don't know how the game works. I'm just helping them get their controller working. But So I'm sitting up there at quite a distance, as we joked about with Recycle Rush, and looking down on the field, and half the time I've got no idea what's going on. Even if there's a score up on the screen, I can't necessarily tell who's winning because the blocks on power up screw things up later. I don't know.
So Dahlia, you came from First Lego League. She actually came from First Lego League, went into First Tech Challenge, and then moved right into FRC.
Okay.
So,
Nice.
Had you seen any First Robotics competitions before when you were in First Lego League?
Yeah, actually, I was keeping up with most of the competitions because I'm interested beforehand. And yeah, most of the time it's like just watching a video of a competition. You never know what's going on. It's like, what's even happening?
And one of our students, I think maybe Nathan, if one of them told us that when they first went to their parents came to one of the events, they said, that was really cool. What was it? You know,
I've been involved in this and going on, oh my God, was it 26 years now? And I can't watch the game and figure out what's going on half the time.
And so I think taking that approach, and I don't think we can drive that home enough, is making it, if you want it to be a spectator sport, and if First wants what Dean Kamen has always said, we want people to turn out like it's the Super Bowl, they need to be able to understand it like it's a football game. You know,
exactly.
And not that I always understand what I'm looking at on a football field, but I do know they're trying to get the ball from one end to the other, and that one team has to win. So
exactly.
but that idea
even if there's nuances like there are in football, right? That a non-regular fan doesn't know, when it happens, it's explained and it's explainable. But the core game of 6 points if you make it from one end of the field to the other, an extra point if you essentially do it again, and there's little bits that kind of everybody knows or can intuit real quick. And that's
for sponsors, for sponsors, especially if you're trying to bring sponsors on board and other people to support it, being able to understand what they're sponsoring and what the game is gold. So we didn't mean to take that away from you, Dahlia.
Way easier for a fan to engage if they know what they're engaging with.
Yeah, we didn't mean to take that away from you, but that was a great point. So.
Yeah, no, if you want to go through and share anything specifically, go on ahead. I'm not going to ask you to share anything specific. I know that we are only 8 days away from submission, but you never know. Sometimes you just want to hold things inside your back pocket.
That's okay. Even if she shares it, it's recorded here and it came from her first. So.
Okay, there you go. True.
Actually, I'm not sure what everybody else is comfortable with me sharing. Coach Terry, can I ask you what I should share?
I don't know. Let me see if anybody's blowing up on Slack yet.
I mean, nobody showed up yet. So I don't want to just come back to me tomorrow at Robotics.
So actually,
I was going to say, let's talk more on the approach, not necessarily the details of the game. You said one of the approaches was to make sure that it was understandable. What other core aspects of the approach to the game design, not the end result, were important to the process?
I feel like another one of our approaches actually was keeping it where the robot didn't have to go completely across the field, because the field is gigantic and we don't want to waste time in this short game for a robot to go across the field. And then the game starts to get boring. We want the game to always have action and something going on, as well as we also wanted the movements to not take too long. So for example, if the robot was picking up something, we want the robot, it's challenging for the team to come up with how to pick it up, but when it's achieved properly, it can be done fairly fast. So we just want everything to move quickly and flow properly. That way it's nice to watch as a viewer, as well as entertaining for the team participating. It's you can look at the other team and it's their robot is there, our robot is here. We want to get to there in this amount of time. Yeah. And I feel like that was another priority. Also, the human element, we didn't want that like the other ones where they were just throwing rings in the, where the human element was just tossed aside as if it was nothing. So we focused on making the human element not in the way of the game, but as well making it oh, I got to do this, and if I don't do it fast enough, my team will lose, or my team will lose time. And those were basically our main approaches to the game.
I'll tell you, one of my favorite games to watch was Steamworks, which Terry has parts over her shoulder. And the human element was neither in the way, but it wasn't in the way, but it was essential. And it was central.
Crucial.
Yeah, it had to happen, and it was like physically central. They were on the field in such a fun way. And so yeah, that from a spectator's side, the people being involved and engaging with the robots more than just here is a frisbee, you know, or randomly chucking them at the pyramids at the end of the game.
Or here's some round object.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many games
makes
of that?
that makes for a way more interesting game to watch. So
There was something else you all took into consideration. I really enjoyed watching their process. You were looking at the impact on volunteers on putting it together. That was one thing I think we had talked about.
I applaud you for that. As a person who has to assemble the field, oh my God.
And yeah, we wanted to be like in and out. It's just there's these few parts you have to put on. It's not constructing anything complicated. And that way, literally, even if you don't have a field at home, it's still easy to replicate it. And that was one of our priorities as well.
That's an amazing priority.
no professional trust work to figure out how to put together if you don't have experience with trust work.
2020, we're all looking at you.
Yeah. I know how trusses work. I've used them a lot, and I still don't like building them.
No. One thing that I want to go through and throw in here that was just a thing to help anybody who may be viewing right now, and even you, Dahlia, if you've noticed an issue with, I shouldn't call it an issue, but there is an aspect of FIRST that has been a problem for many, many years. And that is direct defense, if you've noticed. Robot on robot action preventing the flow of the game. So that was one aspect that I am excited to see if there are other people who have been able to tackle that.
I believe you guys addressed that, didn't you?
That's exactly what we addressed, actually.
Good.
So, we wanted, again, that has to do with scores and everything. We had, I'm not going to reveal anything just so I don't get attacked or anything, but...
Nobody attacks on that team. They'll just press
I know,
down with their
nobody
eyes.
does. But we have, basically we wanted it, so the robots are forced to kind of leave their defense temporarily. And during that time, the opponent can go and quickly do what they need to do and leave.
Yeah, that is a very good aspect. One thing that I'll go through and drop in when creating the Roboticon Game Design Challenge, that was my most important thing when creating that game, was saying I want a game where it's not direct defense but strategic defense, where like in a game of chess, if I place my piece here, that helps prevent something else that happens that the opponent can do. And it's more about creating a strategy and making it that your alliance has to work more closely knit together to form a strategy than the individual parts. It makes the sum of the parts greater than them each individually. So that I am glad that you guys were able to go through and tackle that, because that direct defense that happens in games is just something that's just grating and drags on throughout the years that we've seen. So I applaud you for that one.
That looks like a good approach to doing your presentation and your write-up on it too, is these are the things that we have addressed, and catch that attention right up front, and then maybe let the judges ask some questions about how to, give them a little bit, but how did you do this? What are, these are elements that we hit on. that we address that we feel have been shortcomings in the past that we feel we have a really cool way to address.
Exactly.
But I think those things like the viewer, the audience, can the audience figure it out right away? Is it easy on volunteers? Is it easy on the eyes? Is it easy on volunteers? And the game strategy portion of it as well.
And the viewership aspect is becoming even more challenging, right? Because you've got the people in the stands, might be family, might be whatever, but there's people in these shirts walking around that you could ask, right? You can stop at Roboticon. You could stop me or Terry or Steve or Marissa or somebody and say, hey, so what? But we're doing so much streaming now, right?
Yeah.
How we had so many viewers of Roboticon 2019 that, how do you hold them? Making sure the game is watchable when you can't ask questions of the person next to you or a green shirt walking around at Roboticon. I really like that.
Yeah, and things have to be clear because we do want everything is streaming. Everything is if first wants to remain popular and appeal to more people, it has to be something that when they look at it, they go, wow, I want to do that. So
yeah. And you and I don't know how much we're talking about, but we're working on something else at Amrock, and I've watched so much of that game, and within one match, I understood what I was watching. Yeah. And that's not at all how I feel with FRC most of the time. To this day, I still don't understand how Recycle Rush worked. No
I don't
idea.
think anybody did. I don't even think the students did. I didn't.
I have watched a lot of that. I produced Roboticon that year. I have no idea.
We're stacking totes. Move on. So
it was stacked totes. And what?
Try not to knock them over. And something about a pool noodle in a garbage can.
The pool noodle was a weird thing to throw into it.
Anyway, but we're 6 years out, and I still don't know how that game works.
We're still puzzled.
But with this thing that we're working on, I watched one match and I understood what I was watching.
There you go.
And I didn't speak the language of the broadcast because it was in Japanese.
So for that explains a lot right there. So for the game design, right? So for instance, Edgar Allan Holmes has their idea, right? They're gonna. What are the next steps now for? Because I haven't gone. I'm one of those coaches that makes all the stuff available. They got a technical coach. I don't read all the rules. They have to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, it's their team. So when they go to present now, they're gonna, I guess. And how much of you're a good rule reader, Dahlia. I know that. You're preparing the presentation, right? Is there an essay involved, and then any diagramming or sketching or anything like that involved?
We're trying to make our presentation short, kind of, but I think we're going to use some slides, but not like, again, what you were saying, pictures and stuff, and making a CAD for the presentation so it's visual for the judges. And we're working on finishing our essays and everything, and we should be ready.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that I will throw in, they have really said nothing about the judging process comparatively to like what they're going to do with like chairmans and any other judged interview. There is a real lack of information as to how they're going to judge these things. They said you're going to have a 15-minute interview, 10-minute presentation, 5 minutes of questions asking. You're allowed 5 people, and one of the 5 people has to be a mentor. And that's all they've told us about our interview.
Well, what are they actually submitting? So what are the judges getting? They're getting the essay and they're getting whatever that package is, right?
What the judges are actually getting, let me go through and actually cite what we're submitting. So you're actually submitting just the game's name, not as a logo, just the name of the game. an image of the field. It can be a drawing on a piece of paper. It could be a physical model that you've made yourself, that you've 3D printed. It could be a CAD image. It's got to be something, and it's got to be submitted as like a JPEG, GIF, PNG, something along those lines, an image file that's no larger than 10 megabytes. Then you have 4 sections that are all very short, actually, comparatively to our, I think, 1,500 word limit essays. You have a 500 word limit game overview, a 300 word description of notable field elements, 300 words of a description of expected robot actions, and 300 word limit on the element, which was the chain, if you're using it. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Then they have the optional things like a video providing an additional information about the game that may not exceed 2 minutes. Usual thing that comes to mind with that is, hey, let's do a game animation of some sort. But, you know, something in general. And then it says supplementary information of up to 4 pages, no larger than 8.5 by 14. It seems like you're given the blank slate to explain to them what you want to do, but it doesn't seem like there is a lot. But
I forgot about the chain element for anybody just sort of tuning in. They were provided with a chain and told to incorporate that if they could into the game, which you guys did. Edgar Allan Holmes did do that.
Very last minute, but it got done.
What's funny is actually the students on 1902 at first, because what it was that since we knew that we were on such a strict time schedule and that the lead student from 1902's game design challenge was also a student that helped me create the ROBOTICON CAD challenge, he was like, yeah, we kind of need to make some rules about this. So anything that was made during the meeting was final. That was it. Once the next meeting came, we were done talking about that and we were moving on to the next section, because if we didn't move along, we were going to get left behind. I mean, they gave us 2 months to make a game.
Yeah.
So they were originally going to leave that on. I'm like, give it a week on that one. And they came back and they said, no, we're keeping that in. We need that. But I'm glad that you guys were able to also figure out a way to include the game element.
Yep.
Anything else that you, just a personal thing from me, is there anything else that you found interesting that you guys wish to tackle as a team that first hadn't tackled out of anything that you've mentioned yet? Like, is there something like specifically that you said, we don't really like that, the way that first does that? How can we handle that topic?
I think definitely the end game. The end game, we didn't want it to be like, oh my gosh, why is the game being interrupted now? And like, why is the end game like this? It's just previous end games have been a little strange and just kind of put off the whole thing. So we wanted our end game to achieve that always lifting up the robot, I guess, kind of theme, but at the same time to still, I guess, not interrupt the game and still have everything flow. I think just flowing in general was our priority.
So, in other words, you decided to say the end game should be we're still playing the same game we're playing, not we have to stop playing the game and go and do some extraneous other task. Am I summarizing it? Okay, good. I like that.
Let's go play a separate game now. Yes.
Yeah, no, actually, quite a few of the volunteers and myself that all chat when we're all at these competitions, we say the same thing. We're like, we're kind of sick and tired of first putting out of these games that it's like, we got to stop what we're doing and go and focus on something else for the 30 seconds of the match. 2011, 2012, 2011, 2013, 14, not 14 or 15. You didn't have to change it there. But 15 exception, that was a terrible game. 14 was a great game because you could keep playing the game. And actually, 14 was one of my most favorite games because that's all you had to do. You played the one game the entire way through. And I think that's actually great idea that you guys decided to say that. Like, don't interrupt the game, even if it's partially interruption, but you still can play the game that you were originally creating. I think that's a great thing to solve as well.
And what were there other considerations for teams as if they're on the fence about doing it, right? I mean, so some of it can be as complicated or as simple as you want, right?
Yeah.
We have a general idea. Should we do it or not? There's nothing to be gained by not doing it necessarily. I mean, it won't hurt to give it a shot.
There's nothing that says that you shouldn't do this. And the way that the rules are, it says that they're asking for one aspect. Even if it's just that you can only come up with that one aspect that you're thinking of, go through, draw it out on a piece of paper, make a quick game around it, even if it's using other elements from previous years. Put all your eggs into that basket, because you never know. If you as a lot of people say, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So if at least you put all your effort into that one shot, like, at least I tried my best.
Yeah. How did from compared to like what you heard from Dahlia regarding how Edgar Allan Holmes approached it, is that similar to the process that 1902 used, or did they take? What I'm trying to get at it, or are there other approaches? Did they approach it a different direction, or okay?
We definitely went in a different direction.
Mm-hmm.
We actually did not tackle the aspect of the audience being able to tell what is happening on the game from, like, being able to tell what's going on the field. I can confirm from other teams that I've heard after talking with them that is actually a very big thing that everybody was tackling. This is one thing that I will admit from our game design, because 1902 isn't too worried about not sharing their information, just not specifics. Yeah. So our end game, while we did include the hanging portion, we made it that we stuck with the aspect of, we don't want one robot to be able to complete the entire game on their own, because there are a lot of powerhouse teams that can just run away with the game, that even if you put 2 box robots on the field, they're going to dominate the other alliance, no matter what it's created out of. And we wanted to help remove that aspect of the game. We wanted to be able to say, no, you need to work with your alliance here. And we made it that, in fact, there are 2 parts to our end game. So you have 2 robots go and complete one thing, and if you want to get that ranking point, you got to get the other thing on the other side of the field. If you're not getting that, you're losing out on the ranking point and possibly the win. So that was one thing, like, that was our main idea on 1902, was eliminate. Actually, the 2 main ideas for 1902 was eliminate the one robot carry-all maneuver, and eliminate the actual, like, imposing defensive strategy. Actually make it that it's a scoring strategy.
That's interesting too, to approach the game from the perspective of, I love, doing First Robotics. I love doing these robots. What is the one thing I don't like about it, right? And how could I resolve that? How could we make that aspect that's always been frustrating to our team go away, right?
Yeah.
And I think that this is a cool opportunity to play around with those ideas. So,
exactly. It helps in this case,
right? You can see themes arise from this too. I hope first this is the themes, right? The dominance of particular teams, the disconnect of the end game, the viewer, so you could go down and make a list of the common themes that are driving the development of some of these game ideas.
Exactly.
Pretty cool.
So, and that's the one thing that I hope that first at least takes from this is, even if you don't take somebody's idea word for word, or if you don't take somebody's game word for word, at least take the recurring themes that we're saying we're not happy with. Like, take that aspect that we want to be able to know what's going on in the field. Like, let's say that we're just running around and we're like, oh, let me just stop and look at this match for 2 seconds. Oh, red side's winning. I can tell that because it's obvious on the field. Like
Yeah.
that aspect, one thing. Second thing, a lot of people with just endgame in general, fixing the endgame so that it's not so much of a disconnect from the game. If you're going to have the endgame, make it make sense with the actual story of the game, with the storytelling. Because I mean, 2018, that didn't really make sense to go through. Why would I hang on a bar in the middle of a scale on a field? 2019, why am I climbing onto a platform when my rocket is flying away now? 2020, why am I hanging on a coat hanger in the center of what is just a slightly larger FTC field in the middle of my field? Like, if you're going to put an
a lot
end
of room
game,
on the practice field.
yeah, exactly. If you're going to have an end game, make it flow and make it actually fit with what your game is doing.
Yeah, especially now that the games are like theoretically so highly themed with stories around them. You know, that's a fairly new thing now that, you know, Disney is highly active in the organization again, because they took a passive role for a long time.
Yeah.
You know, having them active again, the games are all super themed. They're, like you said, there's a story, there's a true goal, and then there's the end game, which is unrelated to everything. Yeah. What does the coat hanger in the middle have to do with power production?
I'll always call it a coat hanger now. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Me too. As soon as you said it, I'm like, yep, we're done. That's it.
Dahlia, what's the team's next steps now? What are you all working
Yeah,
on?
what are you guys doing next?
Actually, based on what you're saying, I think we're going
She's
to work
taking
on our
notes. I've been
story
watching
some
her.
more.
I
Definitely.
This is more so me giving information, and there have been things that I've asked because those are questions that I will be asking. I'm not going to highlight which ones I'm actually going to ask because I asked an entire array. Some of them I will not be asking. Some of them I will be asking. There were some emphasis on some of the questions that I will be asking. And I'm glad that somebody else is like, that you're benefiting from this, and I hope that there are people that are watching that are also benefiting from this, because it's important. Like, if you're going to go through and compete in this and you want to have a chance, being able to have that extra bit of knowledge going in is important. Because otherwise it's just going to be like you're left in the dust.
It's the thing that I used to do with First Tech Challenge and engineering notebooks. Is I'd talk to students before First said you're not allowed to do that anymore. I used to help the kids with, you know, these are the things that if you really tighten up these areas, this is the thing that'll help you.
You had a crowd. You get a crowd around you. Yeah.
Yeah. The coach from Super 7, anytime I see him, he still thanks me because that was how they got to the Super Regionals in their first season.
Yeah. So what are, after your note taking, so you're going to strengthen the story up a little bit more? Is that what you're saying, Dahlia?
I think those are my point at the moment.
Yeah.
Go through
presentation.
Story is a big thing, especially since I'm going to call it modern era first, because once Disney took over in 2016, it kind of turned into this modern era of first. And it was the coming of the ranking point. It was the coming of being ranked by how many ranking points you were able to go through as an average. And so came with it storytelling of how these games work. 2016, it was tower defense. 2017, it was sending your airship off. 2017 had the most, just quickly, 2017 actually had the most connected end game, because you had to climb onto your airship and fly away with it. No. 2016 had made less sense.
And then even the score animation went along with it.
Yeah,
Like
which
every
that was
aspect,
cool.
every aspect of that game was tied together. You're right.
And that doesn't mean, I think we need to be clear too, it doesn't have to be a complicated story, right?
No,
So when
no,
we say story,
no.
you don't have to, the simpler the better, actually.
Hey, you're not creating
Yeah.
characters and narratives, but the idea that like 2020, right? The idea was that power generation, and then which is fine. Yeah, there was a whole thing of how to build power. The end game should have been using that power. That's the thing we're talking about. You know what I mean?
There might be one other thing we haven't touched on. We're coming up on our hour here. Not that we're in any huge rush, but one of the things, I don't know if we touched on it. I've been watching chat and doing some other things on the robot skills that are utilized in the game, because it is an engineering challenge, right? So what are, I don't know if that was taken into, or if it is being taken into consideration, but what are the kinds of skills, manipulations, and things that the robot is going to have to do in order to complete the game? So how does that challenge the students? What are the engineering challenges in it, right? Autonomous, in terms of mechanical,
Sensor
things like
usage.
that. Because basically, all the games, basically you're not reinventing anything really. I mean, you're putting it in a different format, you're putting it in a different story, but essentially you're doing a lot of the same things. You're having robots, you're having machines do something, right? They're manipulating, they're moving, so I think that's an interesting part to keep in there too. How challenging is the build? You don't want to make it so overcomplicated that you can't do it.
But also
want to have different things.
But also, are there like bonuses for newer technology? The color wheel was one of my favorite parts of 2020 because it incorporated a color sensor and a rule that you didn't know what it was going to be until it was time to do it. That was a cool aspect of 2020. That so maybe not every robot can do it, and that gets back to the idea of the forced work with your team. Not every team can necessarily do it, which is fine. But if you can, better.
Right. Are there enough elements in it that a team can be successful at what, as a rookie team or versus up to an advanced team?
Right.
And how equal are the chances, or how level is the playing field for new versus veteran teams, right?
Yeah.
Things like that.
That actually, I will go through and quote first very own game manual about this. Let me go through and find it really quick because I know I've seen this so many times. They said, okay, here it is. A broad. So it says this is the review the criteria under what makes a game good. Section 8.5. It says are accessible to a broad range of people, teams, and audience, physical capabilities culturally appropriate. A broad range of teams can reasonably practice at a wide range of team meeting locations. Challenging for teams and robots with a variety of capabilities. Simple robots can earn points with a low skill floor, and high-performing robots can still show their full capabilities. You want to reward everybody at every step of the way, be it moving and autonomous, being able to just drop something, being able to just place something, to being able to use my limelight to go through and follow an auto-targeting system across the field. And you want to be able to make everybody feel good about every aspect of their robot by rewarding.
Able to achieve,
and have every team feel like they've contributed to the alliance.
Exactly.
I think that's the ultimate goal. Nobody feels like they didn't contribute to the alliance.
Sorry.
I love it.
And that's really important, and I hope First heeds their own advice on that, because you do need to be able to practice everywhere, right? You do need to be able to have, not everybody's going to have an FRC field like we have at Amrock. Most people don't. And you need to be able to have, I never want to put anything as complicated as a hanger up in the field again. That thing basically, remove the use of the facility for anything else other than that. It was big, it was dangerous.
And I've never seen the group as happy as when they took it down.
They took it down fast, man.
Man, that must have been like a sigh of relief.
There
Like taking off
there
a
are
cat.
photos. There are photos.
Yes, it went down
Good.
fast. I couldn't believe how fast it went down. It's like, wow, they're done. Yeah.
Everybody was happy to be done with that thing because it was huge. Like you said, it.
Yeah.
You know, if it were, I mean, it doesn't quite work out this way because the field wouldn't have been there. But we couldn't have used it for game night during Roboticon the way we did in 2019, right? We
Yeah.
literally set up tables where the field should have been, and played games. We couldn't have done that with that big thing in the middle.
Golf course between seasons, and I can't have something like that unless it's a windmill. Then I can, and maybe a windmill. But other than that,
We could make that. We could have made that into a windmill.
that's true. We should have.
Turned it sideways, and then put a sim on it. Gear it
Yeah. So
down
what
so
I
it's
think
not
would
that
be-
fast.
What I would like to do at Roboticon, and you're all hearing it here, is I would like to actually take, so all these games that people are putting together, I would actually like to take the ones that maybe don't make it all the way through, or that any teams would like to submit to us to do some, demos at Roboticon 2020, maybe 2021, depending on where we are at the end of the year, but definitely by 2022.
I would like to see 3D printed models of some of these fields.
Me too. Yeah.
I'm sorry that when you said that earlier, I went, ooh, what?
That's
A
a
I mean, we
3D
could
print-
do a whole bunch
a 3D printed model
So
of
don't
a-
throw away your game design ideas if you're out there and you don't think that, it's like, oh, I didn't get selected. Hold on to them. We'll do other things,
Yeah.
There's also a resident person who needs games because it was hard enough making one game. 1902 is sufficiently ready that if we do not get far with this game, or if they do not take a lot of aspects, and like on the off chance that we do win and we do go far with this game, we're looking on using this game that we've created to go through and be our next Roboticon CAD challenge.
Yeah, but other teams could submit their games
theirs
for
as well.
future. Yeah,
I'd
we've
love-
got lots of
I-
Roboticons coming up.
Exactly.
For sure. I love that idea.
Yeah, so we would definitely love to see them after the season, and do different things with them, and do some of them as demos, and have
Exactly.
a good time with them. We could do them as scrimmages. Can you imagine using some of those, especially if they're easy to put together, and just hosting them as robot skills challenges and local scrimmages? That would be so much fun to do. So teams could conceivably play their own games that they put together.
If you're a senior, you can submit it to the next challenge when you're in college.
Mm-hmm.
There was
Right.
at our last Roboticon, maybe
2019.
we did, last in-person Roboticon. We did a thing where we introduced game elements from an old game. I believe it might have been the Toads.
It was
Yes.
actually the Georgia first FDA did that.
That
fun.
was a lot of fun, taking a robot that wasn't designed for those things and watching. I had the best view in the entire arena because they were all right below me, trying to adjust their robots last minute to be able to pick up these stupid heavy things when all they had been dealing with were light elements all season.
Yeah,
It was so much fun to watch
and
them
even
make
playing
changes
soccer
real
here
quick.
during the Halloween scrimmage when we did
was fun.
soccer with the yoga balls.
Yeah.
That
So
was
being
fun,
able to take elements from these games, because we took an element from an old game, but we could just as easily take an element from one of these game submissions and incorporate it into the we're killing time while we figure out the rankings, and put the awards together at the end of the day, because that's what we did.
Helps me take a bit of a load off as the master of ceremonies.
Yeah, it does. It's like, we're gonna do this now. So
That makes my life easier.
So Dolly, you got anything else there, or you're all set now? You're gonna lead the team on to victory with the game design submission, or
Walking
I
away with
would hope
notes.
so now. Yeah, I think we'll just work hard tomorrow and prepare.
Good.
Yep,
Good.
tomorrow's our meeting. So you guys are on the
Tomorrow's our meeting as well.
Apparently you hit all the right notes on it, and you approached it from all the right direction, and hopefully you got some good ideas. So
Yeah.
and definitely I know what their game is, and it's awesome, and I want to play it at Roboticon.
I think that's something that's been great because every single team has been able to say at least about their own game, I want to play this game.
That's perfect.
Like I had Kevin, while we weren't even done with the game yet, he's like, I need to build an intake for this game now. And he sent it to me about a couple of days later, and I was like, what is this thing? Because it was we made it that it was not easy to acquire game pieces inside of this game.
Okay.
It's not easy, and you needed to be innovative with your idea, and boy was he innovative.
That's cool.
Holy cow. So I gotta applaud.
So kudos to First for creating a fun competition during a remote season that's engaging creativity, imagination, some good design thinking, and so that's fantastic.
Sure.
We can wrap it up here. We'll be back in another couple weeks we haven't put together the rest of the schedule for Roboticon Live, but we will. So we'll be putting some stuff out again. We hope folks will join us. I'd love to see more teams join us and share what they're doing as we get further along into the season, after it'll be post submission time, but we want to keep the conversation going. Actually, we'll have the robot skills will be underway. Good. I'm glad it was helpful. Thanks, Steve. But I think it'll be fun as we go into March to start looking at some of the robot skills. And I think that would be, if teams want to come and demo that and ask questions about it, I think that'd be a lot of fun because we'll be past all these submission periods and now we'll just be doing robot skills.
For sure. And so I kind of wanted to end with a reminder for everybody who is watching either live or recorded, that we do have a facility. Terry is sitting in it right now. It's got support.
There are students working outside right now. So
it has support for all of the programs. We've got a Lego League table. We've got a First Tech Challenge field, First Robotics Competition field, and then we've also got VEX availability. So we know a lot of programs.
We've got a drone program going now, so we've got a lot of cool stuff going on over here.
So if you are a team who, we talked about the next game, the game design challenge, being practicable and runnable from a variety of locations. That's not always the case, so if you want to access a physical field, no matter the program, amrocktampabay.com, right, Terry?
Yep, amrocktampabay.com. And so we would love to have teams come over. Anybody in Central Florida, the Tampa Bay area, you can use the field, you can do filming. We've actually been contacted by a couple of teams who want to do their videos, their team videos here. So
Smart.
You can certainly do all of that. And we would love to have teams, you can check out everything on the website, on the Youth Robotics page. Oops, I put it in. No, wait, hang on a second. I will pop that up there. There we go. There, that's what I was trying to do.
Perfect.
So yeah, anybody can go to the website, check out all the stuff we have, go to the Youth Robotics page, and teams can reserve time on the field, and talk to us about using the field different times of the week after school or on weekends. So happy to do that. Now I got to remove that. I don't know where it is. There it is.
It's a great resource, and it is available for teams that
and then
need to use it.
Yep, and tomorrow the Edgar Allan Holmes is meeting, and they're also happy to do it. They have a Q&A opportunity for any teams that want to hop on to talk about the autonomous navigation and programming. So we've got that availability, and it's actually on their website. And pop that up there. Hang on a second. Here we go. Oh, that's a long link. Look out, here it comes. So actually, I'll put it in chat. It's a
good idea.
Yeah. Oops. Because you don't want this across the screen. There you go.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, you don't.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Did it post? It's not even showing on my end.
Oh, I'm seeing it for sure.
Oh yeah, I see that.
Yeah, it's a long link. But anyway, so they're happy to host a programming meetup. So any teams that have questions about autonomous or anything like that, you can go there and sign up, and we'll give you the link and you can join in while they're meeting tomorrow. So.
And of course, Roboticon is not just an event; it's a community. If you or your team would like to help us host a future Roboticon digital event during this season, if you've got an idea for a session you would like us to do, let us know. If you are doing something like the Edgar Allan Ohms thing, let us know. We will share it with the community, because that is that's one of the things personally that I love about the Roboticon community, is that it is, active community, people working together and sharing ideas. I think that's really cool, and I don't think there's enough of that out there.
Nope. And we definitely were here. Look, there's another website. Hey, you can reach
Throwing
out
all
to
the links today.
Yeah, that's it. You can reach out to us on roboticon.net, contact us through the contact page. We've got resources there. We've got all these previous videos archived there, so you can go back and look through them. Fast forward through the chatty parts and get to the meat of whatever you're looking for. We're also keeping all the resources for the different topics that we're talking about. So Brian, if you've got any you want us to add on there, we'll throw things up there on it. For instance, I had totally missed the game design activities. So, that was really cool. I'm going to be sure to add that. So,
yeah.
So thank you to all who watched and tuned in tonight and followed along with us. Thank you, Dahlia, for jumping on. New student, and she's like, I'll be available. And some of the others said, well, maybe I can. And then there she is by herself. She's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that Dahlia is a great example of a student who's curious and interested and always eager to tackle things and take things on and isn't afraid to try things. Thank you, Dahlia. You're a great role model on the team. So I'm glad you're on the team with us.
Thank you.
Be careful, because the person who I associate that behavior with most from your team is now our volunteer coordinator for Roboticon. So
this is true.
we might recruit you after you graduate for big things.
All right. Well, we're going to end the broadcast. You can hang around a few minutes if you want, Dahlia and Brian. Definitely, we'll chat a little bit afterwards. But thank you for everybody who was joining us tonight and for all the cool conversation.
Yeah.
For sure. And for those of you who are watching, we will see you back here for our next session, which is...
Well, I don't know.
2 weeks?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
It is going to be on
12th.
The
March
12th.
12th.
March
Yes.
12th.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, we will see our Roboticon community back on March 12th. Until then.
Stay tuned to the website and social media, because we got stuff posted all the time there.
For sure.